Welcome to our devotional series titled Toward the Dawn. The idea is that we reflect on how this week moves, demonstrating the darkest human time, but it's right before the glorious victory of the cross of Christ. Today, we start with Palm Sunday. Now, you know Palm Sunday. Many of you probably have memories as a child, or maybe your child or grandchild, walking into church, waving branches, chanting, "Hosanna, Hosanna." It's when we'd hear the story of Jesus riding into town on a donkey. Donkeys, man. Who would ever make up a story where the hero triumphantly enters on a donkey? If you've ever seen any of the Shrek movies, then you know what I'm talking about when we mention donkeys. In fact, in the second Shrek movie, Donkey tries to comfort Shrek, who is on the run from a lot of trouble. And in the most comforting way possible, Donkey says to Shrek, "Don't worry. Things seem bad because it's dark and rainy, and Fiona's father hired a sleazy hitman to whack you. It'll be better in the morning." And what a friend. What a beast of comfort. Well, our story of Jesus entering in on the donkey is recorded by all four gospel writers. Let's take a look at Matthew's retelling in Matthew 21. Now, when they drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, "Say to the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." The disciples went and did as Jesus directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. And the crowds that went before him and that followed him were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up, saying, "Who is this?" And the crowd said, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee." Now, if we pause and look closely at the story before us today, we notice something small but meaningful. Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem appears in all four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yet Matthew alone tells us that when the disciples brought the donkey for Jesus, they also brought the colt's mother along with it. Now, this detail helps us picture the moment more clearly. The animal Jesus rides in on is not an experienced beast of burden, but a young colt, likely no more than 3 or 4 years old, one that had never been ridden before. And soon, this young colt would walk into a scene that must have felt overwhelming. Crowds were cheering, palm branches were waving, cloaks were spread along the road so the colt could not even see the ground beneath its feet. And to steady the young animal, they brought its mother alongside it. Yet, the colt carries Jesus forward. Even in the middle of noise, confusion, fear, it continues the path set before it. Now, there's something quietly beautiful in that image. The colt does not understand the moment. It cannot see the full path, but it still bears Jesus faithfully into the city. Perhaps that's a prayer that we can carry into this week. Lord, help me to be faithful even when I am afraid. Help me to keep walking the path you place before me, even when I cannot see clearly. Help me carry you faithfully in the places that you lead. Interestingly, those who work with donkeys, they say sometimes those donkeys stop not because they are stubborn, but because they are careful. Donkeys are known for being safety-conscious animals. They pause when something feels a little uncertain. Perhaps there's some wisdom in that as well. Faithfulness does not mean the absence of fear. It means continuing to trust the one who leads us even when the road ahead feels a little unfamiliar. Now, as Jesus entered Jerusalem, the crowd celebrated him. At the very same time, the religious leaders were quietly plotting how to put him to death. Jerusalem lived in a fragile balance. The Jewish people were under Roman rule, and through resentment simmered beneath the surface. There was none easy peace. Everyone knew that if a rebellion began, Rome would respond with crushing force. Now imagine what some people might have been thinking when Jesus arrived. This was the man who had raised the dead. News of the raising of Lazarus of Bethany had spread everywhere. What might the revolutionaries have imagined if someone with that power came to Jerusalem? Groups like the Zealots longed for freedom from Rome. What kind of army could they build if their leaders could raise the dead? What kind of general could ever be defeated if his soldiers would not stay dead? So the crowds waved palm branches as Jesus entered the city, just as we read in Matthew 21, also in Mark 11, Luke 19, and John 12. But why were they cheering? Did they believe Jesus had come to take Jerusalem back from Rome? Did they imagine a king who would restore their nation's power? Were they celebrating the possibility that one of their own might finally take control? What they did not realize was that the glory of God would be revealed in a way none of them expected. It would be through a cross. Now, Palm Sunday can feel bittersweet. When we watch children waving branches with excitement, it's a beautiful picture of joy. But it can also feel like watching a story that we already know. The characters are celebrating, but we know what lies ahead. Because what comes next is betrayal, a trial, torture, a cross. Holy Week moves from celebration to confrontation. Jesus curses a fig tree. He overturns tables and cleanses the temple. He speaks of the temple being torn down and rebuilt in 3 days. Everything begins to unravel. Yet this is where the story of Holy Week meets the heart of our series, Toward the Dawn. Because when night falls, dawn is already on its way. The crowds on Palm Sunday could not see what was coming. They could not imagine that death itself was about to be defeated. They could not see that the cross was not the end of the story. But Jesus could. Every step he takes this week through conflict, suffering, and the cross is a step toward the dawn. And as we walk through this week with him, we remember that even in the darkest moments of the story, the light of resurrection is already drawing near. So, join us in the next segment of Toward the Dawn as we examine Holy Monday and Holy Tuesday while we inch closer and closer to Good Friday service that is held at South Rock Christian Church this Friday at 7 o'clock. But also move ever closer through the darkness toward the dawn.